What's going on, folks? It's your boy again, Doc Sean Thomas, back in the building. Be More Today's show. We are here, season 4, episode 113. Oh my goodness, we are back. We are back in the building. We've done so many things this year already. And I gotta just say thank you for your love and support. We've been doing things for the last 4 seasons, putting this platform on there. Be More Today's show, 73 countries, 68,000 downloads. It's all thanks to you, your love, support, your continual growth with us as we've done this thing for the last 4 years. I thank you all for your love. And again, it's a movement. We have Be More Today everywhere. BeMoreToday.com for my book, which is on Amazon, our podcast, clearly our More merch store, which is open with our logos and our fitness gear. And of course, Project 40, which for those of you who have been doing it with us has been 40 days of working out, 40 days of fitness, of health, of wellness. And it's just been a journey and a great journey for me to see the change that we've seen in people's lives from day one. As some of you may know, I'm also now a certified running coach. I don't know how that happened, but it did. So for those who are doing running things with me this year as I train for Berlin and other races, if you want to join us for that journey, please email me at info@bemoretay.com. And today's quote is very, very simple as always. Stop avoiding the very activity that can create the results you desire, by Myron Golden. Stop avoiding the very activity that can create the results that you desire. This has been a year, for me at least, where I said that I want to be active in everything. And I think sometimes we get very caught up in avoiding things that we know we're going to be good at. We sometimes even try other things that we know we don't even like just to get away from what we already know is inevitable. And for some of us, we don't want to do it because it's what our parents did. For some of us, you don't want to do it because it doesn't feel right, or because we're looking for other things that people think we should be doing or should be saying or should be living. But there is a talent and a light that's in all of us. And I truly believe that each of us has a talent and a gift to share with the world. And sometimes those talents and gifts are thwarted because we don't have the faith, we don't have the attitude, we don't have the motivation, or even the time to really put that talent to work. And I just want to encourage you out there, if there's something that you want to do that you're afraid to do, as I've talked about on the show millions of times, even from graduating from Brown to now, I've failed at so many things. But each of those things helped me to get closer and closer to what I'm doing now. And that journey is something that I look back now, you forget the things you didn't do well at. All you look at now is all the progress, the things that you're doing well now, the things that you're seeing success in now, because as these things go by you, the challenges, the pitfalls, right? They're just in the distant memory as you continue to strive and look for what's happening in your future and the desires of your heart that make you happy, the things that really push you to be great. Those things are the things that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. So just know that it may seem hard now. It may seem like, what am I doing? But there are so many things that you want to do, want to get done. And I know you can truly do if you just put your mind to it. And my guest on the show today pretty much is the embodiment of that and so much more. She's a great old friend of mine, and I'm happy we got a chance to reconnect because she's doing amazing things now all over the world. But I got to just let you guys know that she is a rock star, and her name is Nina Clemente. Now, Nina Clemente was born in Italy and raised in NYC, New York City. Nina Clemente realized the possibilities of transforming local ingredients into Southern Italian feasts by watching her mother make traditional, delicious, and seasonal cuisine. These childhood experiences in which food was the anchor for friends and family to gather around a table, share their stories, and create memories inspired her to make food her career. Now, after graduating from Brown University, Bruno, class of '03 in the house as always. She has a degree in anthropology. Nina began a successful stint as a private chef in Los Angeles. She went on to work at Osteria Mozza, learning from the incomparable Nancy Silverton. She then worked at Maya's restaurant in St. Barths, followed by her time spent under the tutelage of Enrico Crippa at his 3 Michelin-star restaurant, Piazza Duomo in Alba, Italy. She continued on to work as executive chef for the Standard Hotel in their Hollywood and NYC locations, followed by Andre Bolaz on a restaurant project in the Hudson Valley. Now, today, Nina strives to bridge both cultures from her childhood by applying all her senses to preparing delicious food, reveling in the memorable gatherings that food inspires. And now she cooks meals that are clean, colorful, and vibrant for the palate. Food that nourishes, is beautiful to look at, and tastes amazing. She's currently living in the Hudson Valley, where I'm actually also from, as you guys know, with her two children, Phoenix and Indigo, and her husband, Wayne. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets included, please welcome to the stage my girl, my good friend, and the rock star for today's show, Nina Clemente. Nina, what is going on?
What's up, Sean? Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been such a long journey since our days at Brown, but yeah, it's been exciting, I think, for both of us. Super inspiring what you're up to, and I'm trying to do the same thing with food to a certain degree, you know. So happy to be here. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
I appreciate you. And you're not trying, you're doing. I mean, I've been following you. I've been trying to catch you for, I gotta say, months now. It's almost been a whole year. I've been trying to track you down. And you've been busy doing all kinds of things everywhere. I know you're in the Hudson Valley now, where I grew up most of my life. And I'm sad that I haven't had a chance to reach out to you and connect with you up there. But I'm happy that you're up there doing great things. And you know, for those who may not know, we were friends at Brown. We were in the same year. We spent a lot of our formative years together. Our first like days, weeks, months at school were like really spent together having a good time and just being in the Brown University era and moment, and from dances to chilling and parties and whatever else. We had fun, and Brown was that thing that connected us. And New York City also connected us as well. Hopping on the Greyhound bus, going back and forth, you know, those things that we forget. Those things really are ingrained in my mind. So it's just great to be able to connect with you, and I'm glad you're doing so well.
Thank you. Same, my dear, same.
Listen, I have a couple of stories that remind me of you back in the day, but one of them was I used to be in this dance company that you know, Fusion Dance Company, and for whatever reason, I didn't have dinner this day, and we had a practice or rehearsal, and I didn't get a chance to get dinner in time, and you know, we were great friends, and you, which I didn't know you cooked at the time, but you came and dropped off this spaghetti and cheese dish for me to eat. And I thought it was the nicest thing. You know, this is great. She's amazing. She came and she got us this food for me, and it was delicious. And as I looked at your story and I looked at your journey, I recognized that you've had this talent, this skill for cooking forever. And I'm curious to know, and you said in your bio that it wasn't until 2007 that you found this passion, but you've been cooking for years. When did you realize that you really enjoyed cooking?
Well, it's funny because I grew up in a very food centric family, Italian born, raised, spent my summers in my mom's little seaside town in the south of Italy, where food was such an integral part of our culture, our life, everything. But growing up, my mom was like an impeccable, always in the kitchen. She had four of us cooking incredible feasts nightly, effortlessly, perfectly coiffed heels, the whole thing. I was actually really bad at cooking, or so I thought. When I was in my teens, I started meddling and playing, and I'd always kind of hover and obsess over what was cooking and burn things and make that. I could not nail the simplicity. You know, my mom would prepare these incredible pastas and dishes that it looked so effortless, but it was apparently not, because it was pretty bad. But when I got to Brown, my first year, I was in Keeney. You were not, right? You were in
Herman Bully, yeah. Hmm.
but at Keeney, it was like, you know, hundreds of us in that building, and we had communal kitchens on each floor. And I vividly remember that first year, I started making big pots of pasta, and I would put a fan in the doorway and, you know, lure the kids in with the smell of just the most simple, basic, I'm talking pasta with tomato sauce, you know, like you said, pasta with some cheese, some good butter. And I would charge people $5 for a plate of pasta, which was, you know, totally fair. And I was making kind of a killing, you know, like $5 cash. There was no Venmo or Zelle at the time, so it's hard cash. And I think that kind of spurred a little, you know, an understanding that even though I felt very insecure in my cooking, if I practiced, if I worked a little harder at it, it could somehow be fruitful in the long run. And I think growing up in New York City, it was such a drastic shift from these summers in Amalfi. My mom, we grew up in her family home generations. I'm talking like 16th century type generations. And they had a tier, or she has a tiered garden where we would pick the wild arugula that was just fiery, spicy, incredible, the tomatoes, eggplants, these giant lemons that I would eat like an apple. And in New York in the winters, it was a little traumatic. You'd have these like perfect tomatoes that tasted like perfect looking, that tasted like cardboard. There was not like this huge movement. I think the farmers market, was there, but it wasn't. I was young. I was not going to Union Square like that to go to that. And quite frankly, like the cost was insane for this beautiful produce, which now living in the Hudson Valley, I realize is much more accessible than I grew up thinking. But then I moved after college. I went to Brazil. I went to a couple of different places, but then I moved to Los Angeles in 2007. And when I hit that first farmer's market in Santa Monica, I get goosebumps thinking about it, 20 something years later. It was unbelievable, the bounty of produce, of things that didn't only look beautiful, but actually tasted insane, brought me back to my childhood. And even though my fundamentals, my actual technical skill at that point in cooking was not massive, access to this incredible produce allowed me to kind of prepare things in a very simple, clean way, that I grew up watching my mom make these kind of dishes. And suddenly I was booking work. I was doing catering jobs for 60 people with zero. Oh, I should mention, I didn't know how to drive. True Yorker,
Right.
6 years old, didn't know how to drive. And, but I started booking jobs. My husband now, who was my dear friend back then, would very kindly like give me rides, in his truck to drop off food, to do events. He took me to a bunch of the farmers markets. That's kind of the beginning of our story. But yeah, I think it took me a while to gain my confidence, to really and realize that cooking, just like any other skill, is learned. The more you practice, the better you get. And the accessibility to incredible produce for me really changed it. And that's what actually, many, many years later took me up to the Hudson Valley. You grew up here. You must know it's all around us. There is a couple months right now that's not
Right.
not height of it, but there's still some amazing greenhouses and some farms really doing it up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my start and my transition into cooking and making good food.
That's incredible. I didn't know about the $5 spaghetti meal that I was missing out. In Quad, I
Yeah,
should have been over there a little more to benefit.
you're across campus. I was
Yeah.
bringing you the free stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It was too far. But it seems like that was really the spark for this creativity for you. And it's like you said, I think yes, being in the Hudson Valley is beautiful. The experience of you being in Italy, clearly, as someone who's been there, once for our honeymoon, we went to Rome, Florence, and Venice, and just seeing and smelling. I mean, I can still smell some of these same dishes we had uh 11 years ago when we were there, the eggplant that we had there and some of the fishes that we had in some of the places, just the essences of the scents and the smells and the seasoning, which is beautiful. And it's a rich culture that now you're talking about infusing the culture you had there with now what you had here in NYC. And I'm looking at it and I'm just salivating just thinking about it because I get excited whenever I have anything that's Italian based, because it's one of my favorite cuisines. And you being in the Hudson Valley is big because as someone who did grow up there, there are not a lot of, or there's not a lot of diversity and variety when it comes to food in that area, right? So there are a couple places that we go to that are in the area. I won't name any ones in particular, but they're always the same ones because there aren't that many up there. So having you in that area is huge because now you can bring your talents, your trades, your culture, and your cuisines to a place that literally needs that, as opposed to being out here in NYC. We're just inundated and we're surrounded by so many different cultures and so many different food cuisines. It's almost overwhelming sometimes. So That's nice. That's nice.
And I
Um,
will
Go
feel like
ahead.
there's a real movement in the past couple of years of people doing some pretty amazing stuff up here. I think what the Hudson Valley allows that New York City or even Los Angeles doesn't is that the quality of life, you can work to live, not work to survive, which I feel
Right.
like New York City, that's what it is. These bigger cities that are so expensive, you're just working to get by. But up here, I've met so many people that have moved, families in particular too, that value spending more time with their kids and value their art outside of maybe what they have to do to survive. They actually can expand on their art as well, and I include food in that aspect. So there's people up here doing incredible. I mean, some of the best bread I've had has been upstate.
Mm,
There's bread movement that's not. You go to the supermarket, almost every loaf of bread has sugar in it.
yeah.
Look it up. It's crazy. You know what I mean? But up here, there's like sourdough, like real, flour that's a whole movement in itself. There's just people doing really cool stuff up here. So I think that the movement is happening. There's more and more great restaurants and great people that have that mentality that they're trying to, make quality product, not crank out, for the financial
Right.
benefits. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
talked about cooking with your mom. My wife is a big time cook too, and she talks about cooking with her mom all the time, living in an Indian household, and her mom showing her how she made certain things and trying to replicate the dishes the same way. But her mom doesn't. There's no recipe book. It's just like, yeah, some of this, some of that, some of this, some of that. So when she's talking over the phone about what to make, she's trying to figure out, how to follow. And she's like, yeah, just some of this, and you're trying to guess, well, what's some? Like, I don't. What are you saying to me? So I can understand and I see you and your mom in the kitchen doing these different certain things. I'm just curious, as someone who experienced that on this end, what it was like for you talking about cooking with your mom and the stories that came about with it. How much of your Italian upbringing and your NYC upbringing are really infused into the dish that you create today?
Well, I have to say, actually, I would say that I cook more with my mom now
Mm,
than I did back then. Because back then, I played sports. I was coming home late. Like my mom was, she would create again and create in such an effortless way. Like there was not much participation on our end, on the kids' end. And so it was more about watching her, right? It was kind of that fly on the wall, just kind of like creeping in and looking. And then I have to say also my father's father and my mother's mother, also in my time spent every summer in Italy, they were both incredible in the kitchen,
mm,
but it's funny because I don't remember, there wasn't lots of cooking with. And again, maybe it's because it was four of us, they were just trying to wrangle us, but it was, and we ate like, I mean, the amount of food we ate, it's like, get the food on the table, hurry up. But now, especially because I've done it for so long, and I very much similarly to your wife, I still call my mom, like, how do you make? And she's like, oh, a little of that, a pinch of this, and you're like, okay, like,
right.
thank, because of how many years I've sort of trained and worked in this field, I can navigate and understand. But quantities, and also I've been trying to write a cookbook for so many years, and quantities is one of my biggest weaknesses, because myself included, it's a little of this, a little of that. You
Right.
know what I mean? And then for restaurants, I've always bulked up recipes, to like quantities that are quite large. So, but I would say, I would say more than New York, which I didn't have as much foundation, except I'd say in the past couple of years that I've been in the Hudson Valley. But most of my foundation was a combination of Los Angeles and Italy. Because
Mm,
LA, I grew up very much immersed in the Alice Waters movement of really that clean food. When I landed in LA, there was a little bit more of like a heavy braised, the heavier foods, the fried foods, the braised foods. And so that's why I was getting hired so much, because I was making a piece of grilled fish with a beautiful salad. I was doing really simplistic dishes that relied so heavily on seasonality, on the quality of the product. And in restaurants, it wasn't, now it's abundant, but then it wasn't as abundant.
right.
So I was kind of a novelty at the time, and I could get by with that foundation of skill set that I had because of and I knew ingredients,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I could also work. This is one of the most, I think, one of my skills that I don't know if this is innate or this is something that you're born with, but in LA, there was lots of ingredients that I worked with for the first time. And just by smelling, tasting, seeing, I knew how to apply it immediately within the realm of whatever dish I was making, you know. And LA also, I have to say, from the private chef side, I had so many clients that had a vast array of dietary restrictions, which
Right.
growing never, it was not like, oh, I mean, you know, my dad actually had some macrobiotic years, but that was my first exposure to having to really execute, you know, things that I'd never done before.
Right.
Still applying my style to them. And then also people loved having, you know, LA, most people have giant kitchens that they never use, particularly these clients I worked with. So I would create, you know, I was immersed in other cultures. There was a lot of movie people that I worked with where they had themed parties, albeit, you know, there was a premiere, Bob Marley premiere. So they asked me to you know, skew Jamaican. And so that forced me to do research and play and sort of experiment with cultures that I didn't grow up making. And that was one of the most fruitful for me in terms of learning curve, was having, you know, forced out of my comfort zone, out of the Italian zone, you know, and I love making a variety, you know, pulling from a variety of cultures that are not my own. I've been so lucky in terms of the access to work I've had that has kind of fostered my skill set and my passion, you know.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, it's always fun when you see someone thriving in their element, right? Where they just are just doing what they do so well and actually enjoying it. And you know, you mentioned that your meals are clean, they're colorful, they're vibrant. And just by listening to you describe them, I can definitely see that. What are some of your favorite dishes that you like to make for parties, for people? What are some of the things that you just really enjoy doing and making for the people who come to you?
I mean, going back to my roots, you know, pasta all day, every day, and not fresh pasta as much with two small children. It's, you know, that's a project, but just saucing up pasta in a variety of ways. But then I also, again, completely out of my comfort zone up here, I love making tagine, very non-Italian, you know, but I'm obsessed with preserved lemon. And my kids love olives, which I abundantly put in there. I love making ramen. You know, I worked with this incredible chef, Sonoko, in Los Angeles to make soba. You know, again, completely out of my cultural foundation, but with such respect, and, you know, and those flavors. And, you know, upstate, the access to,
Yes.
you know, it's not as abundant as the city, or LA, which is more like my restaurant foundation, accessibility. So yeah, those I'd say are some of my dishes that I love making particularly for my family, you know. And I will say that after many years of working in a restaurant, it really is not the most luxurious lifestyle, if you will, particularly, you know, having a small child. When I gave birth to my daughter Indigo, who's now 9, that was when they hired me as my first executive chef position when I was 5 months pregnant. And I sort of didn't stop for 4 years, where like I kind of hopped from restaurant to restaurant in that role. And, you know, it was like 14 hours a day. It was excruciating. I sort of fell out of love with cooking, you know, particularly when you're cranking out volume and you're managing way more staff that, you know, like that are way worse behaved than your small toddler. You know, I fell out of love, you know, and it took me some time to fall back in love. I'd say actually the pandemic kind of shifted things for me, because I was able to kind of spend more time with my family than I probably ever had, and cook with so much more. Because then again, when you're cooking 14 hours a day in a restaurant environment, come home, you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like you're not, there's no, and I was very adamant about feeding my child really well. So I'd make her amazing food, but then I'd be eating her scraps. You know what I mean? Just to like, yeah. I mean, it was, yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And then, but now I think I've like rebirthed and I've reassessed, you know, when people are like, don't you want your own restaurant? I'm like, nope. Not even a little bit, you know. So yeah, it's funny ebbs and flows of work and the passion, how it came from me. You know, in the beginning it was so much passion, and then it became something else, you know. And I think I've been reborn. Hence,
Mm.
also my son, pandemic baby named Phoenix, you know, born from the ashes. But yeah, it's been really, I've been really lucky and blessed in the past couple of years, and you know, through all the chaos of the pandemic and everything. And I don't know. Yeah, it's I feel I'm in a much better place right now in terms of the restaurant world and the reckoning, you know, being I was mistreated copious amounts of times when I was a line cook in
Mm.
my early in restaurants, you know, and thankfully I didn't become that chef, you know. I actually had the opposite problem where some of my employees, I wasn't violent enough for them to respect me, you know. So it's interesting, sort of the transition that whole industry has made as well in the past couple of years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think the pandemic was something that was a fork in the road for a number of people. Even myself, you know, there was a point in time looking at my own career. I've been a therapist now for about 11 years. I said, you know what, private practice, I'm going to do it. And I talked about that for a number of years. And yeah, the family aspect of it was the one thing that I said, you know what, not right now, because so much work and effort goes into owning anything, right? If you could be an owner for a restaurant or a PT place, healthcare, whatever, the amount of hours that are put into doing that thing, you know, if you're 17, 18, 21, no family, it's totally different than if you're in your 40s, two kids, one kid, you know, married, what have you. It's a very different mindset. And I thought, at least for me, I thought, oh, what's the big deal? It'd be hard for the first few months. And they do say those things, but like you said, so much time and effort gets taken for doing this work thing that it takes away from family in such a huge manner that yeah, you miss spending time and you miss moments, you miss critical moments with your kids, with your husband, wife, etc., while you're trying to make a buck for yourself. So yeah, I think the paradigm shift has changed for a number of us who are like, yo, let me not put all of my efforts and energy into doing that, but what can I do instead to still, you know, make a money, make a legacy, make a future for my family? And I think you're doing that, and I'm doing that as well, just trying to figure out the best way to still showcase our talents and still, of course, be compensated for what we know that we're good at and we know that people are really buying into. And I think you're doing it, from doing things in the Hudson Valley to, I know you say you're working on a cookbook, which is super exciting. You know, you mentioned that in passing. And I think all those things are the things that people are now pivoting to and shifting to, because there's a new normal now. There's a new way of looking at appreciating family and appreciating time, especially seeing the pandemic and how much we lost and how many people we lost. I mean, they're just more important things nowadays than the grind.
Yeah.
And if you can make it successful and still make money with it and still enjoy doing your passion, I think that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Listen, Nina, I know that a number of people, including myself, um have a hard time cooking. And I'm gonna say that I can cook. My wife is a much better cook. I would never say I can come anywhere close to how my wife cooks. And I can make things. But I struggle with cooking. It is not fun for me. I get sent often to go to the store and pick up groceries, and I have a list that's always sent to me at the end of my work day when I'm exhausted. It's never fun for me. I have to just go through my list and then taking pictures of, okay, what does she want? And look online and see what it looks like. Is that what okay? It's not enjoyable for me at all. So I'm curious what tips you would share for those who are kind of like me, who can cook, but they don't really enjoy cooking, but they know cooking is something that we have to do because we got to eat. And
Yeah.
it's a challenge, right? So, what are some tips that you can share with the listeners or anyone on ways that they can make cooking easier, more enjoyable, even more effective during the
Sure.
week?
Sure. It's so interesting to me because to not find cooking enjoyable, right? That's something that you would think as a chef, like there's no way that I could ever think like that. But like I mentioned, when I was working those hours where that's all I did, I had the same thing where I would come home and be like, oh my God, like what do I have to cook? I don't want to cook, the effort, the clean for me, the cleanup after, all of it, managing the kid that's running around. That being said, I think that a good approach is to pick 3 dishes, right? And at this point, I mean, there's no excuse for not being able to make something because the internet is at your fingertips. There's a billion videos on every particular thing you could ever imagine wanting to learn how to make. You pick 3 dishes that either you love, your partner loves, your kids love, helpful if all of you love it, quite frankly. And you just work on those 3 dishes, and you perfect those 3 dishes. And again, also preferable if those 3 dishes have interchangeable ingredients. So for example, like for me, steaming a vegetable, a green bean, some broccoli, the most simple foundation, and hitting it with there's 2 options. You could do olive oil, lemon, and salt, the most simple when it comes off. Or you could also, if you prefer something hot, olive oil and garlic, and you just kind of saute it in that. So, and that's interchangeable with 100 vegetables. You know what I mean?
Right.
Getting a couple of dishes that excite you, that do, regardless of how much, even if it's a one pot, if you hate cleaning, find something that's a one pot dish. There's a billion also of those out there,
Yeah.
just perfect those couple of dishes. I think, I'm so fortunate that my husband is an amazing cook and he's from Trinidad. So culturally too, it's a total shift from what I'm making. And we alternate every night who cooks, and our kids are avid eaters. I mean, my 20-month-old could wipe out like a whole roast chicken. I mean, it's a running joke how much food he eats. And I do think, I see some of my friends where it's a one-sided cooking operation, and that is so hard. Even just to think, I think of my own mother, like by the end being like, oh my God, what do you guys want to eat? So even if you're not great at cooking, it's not your favorite thing, even if you're the one working your ass off all day and, your partner is at home taking care of the kids or somebody else, even if there's an imbalance there and you feel like, no, you know what? I'm not the one to cook. I challenge you to actually take those 3 dishes, which makes that 3 days of you cooking, and also I know a lot of us struggle to make our kids lunches for school, so there too, think about a dish that can, so my little baby just came in. Think about a dish that can kind of go into, can roll into the next day. This is Phoenix. Sorry, say hi, Phoenix. So, you can warm some fried rice, you know what I mean? That you can warm up for your kid the next day and slide into a thermos, even a grilled cheese, which, I don't know if you remember Christine Moy, but the first time she tried to make me a grilled cheese, I was like, what the hell? Like, this is she burned that to the ground, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I just think that, that's my challenge to you is find your 3 dishes and make them and involve put your kids to work. My 9-year-old, she's shredding carrots for me. She makes dressings for our salad every night. There's a salad at the end of the meal. And she's been doing this since she was 4 years old. Because I would come tired at 6 p.m., and hustling to get dinner on the table. So I gave her a bowl, a whisk, some mustard, a couple of vinegars, some lemon, olive oil, salt, and she would go to town. And would she not always make the best dressing? Yes. But did it give her the confidence to now when we have dinner parties, we're like, Indigo, go make the dressing. And she's off. She scrambles her own eggs in the morning. Put those kids to work. They love this one, 20 months old. He's obsessed with setting the table. Not the most ideal situation because he puts like 50 plates on the table, but he really wants to participate, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
I think oftentimes it's easier and quicker and less messy for us to just do it ourselves.
Hmm.
But put them to work early, because by the time he's 2, he's going to be fully setting the table, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, ago we started, my husband started her chopping at 2 years old. She had her own knife and she was chopping garlic. I'm not talking about like a mushy banana. She was
Hmm.
chopping garlic. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
That's very
yeah,
impressive.
hey, make it a family affair the best you can, you know. Get those 3 dishes. That's my challenge.
Yeah.
And that's that.
That is great advice. That is great
And,
advice.
we're gonna touch base next month, Sean. I want to know what 3 dishes you've perfected.
Listen, put me on. I'm gonna touch base with you next month. 3 dishes. I
Three
already
dishes.
have an idea for one, but yes,
That's
I'm gonna have 3 dishes to share with you for sure.
amazing.
For sure, for sure. Listen, I just want to talk briefly about your dad because I knew that your dad was a pretty pivotal portion of the art world for a long time. And I didn't realize we had shared the same birthday. So he's a March baby, so he's super cool now. But when I met him a long time ago and just being, in your house and seeing all the art that was around you, um, and listening to you talk about, your dad and Keith Haring and all the people that you were surrounded with when you were younger, I'm just curious how that creativity, being around that creativity and that level of creativity, how that has impacted you into your creativity in the kitchen and with your food. Because I do believe that there's a certain connection between creatives when it comes to whether it's art, music, dance, cooking. Those things are all kind of connected. So, what inspirations do you take from your dad or from the people that you were around at an early age, and even now today?
I mean, for me, it was all about the visual, because I grew up when we moved to New York. We were living in my dad's studio. All these incredible artists, Keith Haring, Jean-Michel Basquiat. Like I grew up with them in the household, and the poets too, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs. And it was a constant visual stimulation, no separation, really. So for me, I think that's been the most impactful. I don't know if it sounds pretentious, but I've always considered my craft, food, and art, one of the best forms of art because it really stimulates all the senses. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think I've been so fortunate to have grown up in that environment because it really dictates even just my plating. I think it's got to be beautiful. The same for the kids. I mean, I make this little kid, he eats whatever we're eating, but I still take, instead of just like slop on a plate, which we're used to for the little kids, like, oh, there's mush. No, like, plate it up nice, give them already an aesthetic in terms of the beautiful food all together, the flavors, the colors, the vibrancy of it. Yeah, I think that's been the most lasting for me. And then also, all these artists were their own activists. And for me, the accessibility to good food, the fact that in this country, it's not an equal situation. I mean, right now in particular, the cost of food, I really, like, it concerns me.
Yeah.
I think that obviously, corporate America, I mean, all these fast food, I thought about the other day, we don't have, we have TV with Netflix, but we don't have commercials. But when we go away, somehow, you catch a moment of commercials. And I thought the other day, when I see a Burger King or a McDonald's commercial, I don't eat that food, but I'm like, damn, that looks insane. It's like so hyper glossy and dripping. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, don't they make commercials like that about vegetables?
Mm-hmm.
Like beautiful, vibrant carrot or like a crispy, chilled piece of celery. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no culture here. Even as when I was a little kid growing up, like vegetables have been made the enemy since there's no, like, it's so wild to me. And then also from an accessibility standpoint, I do think having the time to actually cook is a luxury. That's a
Yeah.
luxury. When you go to so much more of the world, that's ingrained in the culture. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's ingrained in the work. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
there's like a big ass break for lunch because they expect people to cook and to
Right.
make, you know.
Yeah.
Even in delis, I'm like, why can't I buy a carrot stick? One, not like a
Right.
box. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, why? It just seems like there's no value there. Yeah, and that's something that I've been trying to navigate and figure out, just how to make food more accessible, good food, and build it in turn. And with my cookbook, I'm trying to also do simultaneously a children's book. My mom's actually an amazing illustrator, so
Mm.
she grew a bunch of vegetables for Indigo when she was little, and I'm trying to sort of make vegetables cool.
Yeah.
You know, make good eating cool. I
Yeah.
see cartoons my daughter watches, and I'm like offended. They're like, "Oh, kale, disgusting," in a cartoon.
Right.
I'm like, obviously, that's leaving a really messed up imprint on these kids' minds.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I'm trying to make vegetables cool. That's a big goal for me, and
Yeah.
eating, and accessible. Quite frankly, it's not fair, um, that that's the way it is. You
Yeah,
know,
I completely agree with you. I think that that's a bigger issue economically, and depending on where you live in the world, definitely a bigger issue. And of course, I was always envious as I learned as I was taking French in middle school that there were these countries that took an hour off for lunch. I was like, wait a minute, why is that not happening here? And yeah, I get it. I think it is about the culture of whatever place we're looking at. And you're right, vegetables and nutritious foods are not highlighted. I mean, my daughter, when she had her first McDonald's hamburger, was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh no, here we go. This is not a good trend for us to do." But we try to make sure that we at least educate that food is medicine. Food is that thing that can make you feel great. It can make you feel horrible, and we have to watch what we eat at all times. And I think you're right. Incorporating them early in terms of cooking and being a part of the process, especially for good food, quality food, healthy food, is the way to go. And I hope that your book will also highlight those things for others, that they can really go out there and find nutritional foods that are good for you, easy to make,
yeah,
and affordable. Because yeah,
yes,
I think that the financial piece is the big piece. That's tough. And I feel bad sometimes walking around, especially walking around, Brooklyn, NYC, and you see all the poverty and homelessness, and even sometimes people who are just trying to find food. And it's always like, the bag of chips that you're giving somebody, or the bag of cookies, or whatever you have, which are all processed foods anyway. I wish we had more access to give somebody, celery stick in some peanut butter, or or something that was going to be more nutritious. Just in
yeah,
that moment, say, I know you're hungry, have this, and let that be the give, as opposed to the bag of Doritos or whatever we're giving somebody else on the street. So it's a bigger issue, and I'm glad that you're at the forefront of that in your field and in your craft to be able to make that change. And to be honest with you, that's what Be More Today is all about. It's really about trying to find people who are doing these great things in their communities. So I got to ask you, I've asked everybody on the show, when they hear the phrase Be More Today, when you hear Be More Today, what does that phrase in your craft and for what you're trying to do in life, what's that mean to you?
I mean, for me, be more is, it's about making that impact. I think I'm able to do it for my kids, luckily enough, and now it's about doing it, for the bigger community. And yeah, and just waking up with that purpose, really trying to build on everything that I've done so far. And create a better future for them, for everyone that's on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, last question. I know you're leaving a legacy for your family. You already come from a legacy with your father, and your mom and your family in general, but now with Phoenix and Indigo and your husband, I see you trying to do bigger and better things for them and for the future. So what's next for Nina Clemente? What's on the docket? I know you talked about the book. What else is up for you for
Yeah.
the future? And what can we look forward to see you being more today in the future months?
Yeah, well, this for me, the book has been a long time coming, so that's taking a big chunk of my time, and then I have one more project that's on the docket that I can't totally disclose yet, but it would be pretty exciting if it happened. And I'll keep you posted. You'll be the first to know.
Awesome. Awesome. Nina, last question. What's your favorite food TV show to watch? Because I have a number that I watch. So I'm curious, when people actually cook, what
So
shows that they like to watch?
So I'm super late to the game because I don't have Hulu, but my friend just hooked me up with her password. Don't tell them. But the bear is unbelievable, truly like just insane. And then with my daughter, she got me strung out on nailed it. So, nailed it. Sometimes he yells out, nailed it. But we just laugh so hard watching that show. Yeah, those are my top two right now for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we watch a lot of those shows as well in our household. Mostly the pastry shows because those are a lot of fun for us to watch. And of course, Beat Bobby Flay is one of our favorites because I love to see Bobby Flay lose, although it doesn't happen very often. But he always we like to just watch it anyway. And Top Chef, of course. Top Chef was our big show for the longest time. But Nina, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being on this show today. You've made this one for the books, and I'm excited for the journey. I'm excited for the book. I don't know if you're going to reunion or not, but if you are, I may see you. I may not. I don't know. We'll see what's going on. But
reunion, then.
Yeah, I know we should go, right? I should go. I got to see you.
Oh, it's time. It's time.
It has been 20 years, so we'll see what's going on. But I appreciate you and your family. Thank you so much for making time today.
Big love. Take care.
Big love. And folks, if you're just taking a bit from what she said today, she said so many things about legacy, about finding her passion, about going out there and being great and not being afraid to fall into the gift. And not hiding the gift as well. She's doing great things for her community. She's doing great things for the food community and showcasing that you can do this. You can make easy cuisines for your family, for your friends. You can make something that you enjoy doing, part of your career and part of your legacy. And the only thing to do is go out there, be fearless, learn what you have to learn, and get it done. So again, a quote from today: stop avoiding the very activity that can create the results that you desire. Go out there and create those desires in your life as well. And folks, follow us at bemoreosteria.com for, again, all the things you heard today from this podcast, to our book on more merch and everything else. Any questions you have for me, or maybe even for Nina, you can follow me at bemoreosteria.com for those things, or email me at bemoreosteria.com for any questions you may have. Folks, have a good day, have a good night, have a great life, and continue to take your steps to greatness to be the best version of you. We'll see you next week. Peace.